For 30 years, Massey University's large animal teaching unit has offered veterinary students the chance to get up close and personal, safely, with farm animals. I met with manager Mike Reilly to learn more about what goes on at the farm classroom, affectionately referred to as Latu.
So the bovine teaching stocks, the whole facility is split up into different areas. You have cows that come in for a clinical exam. This is where students get to interact with them, learn the basics of handling cows and learn to do a good clinical exam on a healthy animal. The whole building's actually split up into multiple areas: equine area, the bovine area, sheep and pigs, alpacas. So we have 5 classes running at one time with 5 different species.
Running a farm centred on learning, rather than commercial opportunities, presents its challenges for farm manager Mike.
You might know from the accent I'm Scottish. When I arrived in New Zealand, I had a couple of working dogs and I didn't know where to exercise them. So I looked up probably the yellow pages back in that time, found the manager of Latu and said, he's near me. Went up to see him and said, can I exercise my dogs? And a number of years later he chose to retire and I stepped into his shoes. We're not commercial. Obviously I try to make a profit. The primary focus is teaching. So this is an outdoor classroom. If you go to a laboratory in a university, you don't expect that to make a profit. The actual challenges come from the seasonality of it. First semester is in autumn. Second semester is through winter into spring. It's the worst time of year to have maximum number of animals, but that's when I have them. So in addition to the tame cows, I bring on 60 to 70 cows that we use for pregnancy diagnosis. We teach the students to palpate a cow and find out whether it's pregnant. That's prior to it being in calf. Then it's in calf, and then we test. But we run that through the winter. So there's quite a management issue of maximum stocking through the winter, and then we destock as much as we can in the summer, grow some grass, save that grass, and then feed them all that grass in the winter again. So it's quite an intense farm. We've also got 30 horses. They are fairly hard in the paddocks and they take up quite a lot of space. Sheep, alpacas, pigs. Pigs we get in seasonally, just when we need them. But again, that's sort of through the winter into spring. So it's a challenge, but that makes it interesting.
Set on 40 hectares near the university's Palmertston North campus, it's home to a wide array of animals, from cows, horses, sheep and pigs, to donkeys and alpaca. It's also home to an increasing number of Massey University students.
Recently, the university has expanded the vet school quite significantly. We've gone from under 100 students per year group to 175 students per year group. One of the challenges we have is that we deal with a lot of students not off farms. Historically, back in the day, lots of young farmers would sort of say, I'm going to be a vet, and off they'd go and be a vet. And that still happened, but also a huge number of students come from the city. We have 50 international students, some of which will have never seen a sheep because there aren't sheep in their home country. So first thing we do with all the vet students, and we also run this course for animal science students, is animal handling. And it's basically a 101 type course for all the species. Here at Latu we will teach horses, cows, pigs, alpacas and sheep. So in terms of the cows, we will be doing things like moving the cows in the stocks, putting their heads in the head wheel, having a look in the mouth, put a halter on, do a tail jack. At this early stage we won't get them to lift or tie a cow's leg up. But for horses, we would be putting rugs on, put a halter on, lifting the feet, cleaning the feet out. Sheep, all those basic things of how sheep move together. If you isolate a sheep, what's going to happen? Not good things. So you keep sheep in groups, how to turn a sheep over. We've all seen shearers working with sheep and throwing the sheep around as if it's effortless. If you're 45 kilos and don't do it every day, it's actually quite a challenge.
You can do an injury quite easily.
Oh, indeed.
To yourself and maybe to the animal.
Indeed. So we teach a technique that, within reason, anyone can turn over almost any sheep. You'll not find a shearer doing it, but it's a safe way for somebody that does not do it every day to handle the sheep.
And how many cattle do you have on the farm that students can work with as part of their training?
Okay, so we've got a core group of 26 tame cows. They arrive here. Often we'll get them off maybe the Massey farms. They found a particularly nice animal. It comes here, gets a name and lives here until it's old and grey. I've got a cow over there, Poppy will be mid-20s now.
Wow.
And she's been here over 20 years.
And so it's obviously you want a nice natured animal so that, it's a health and safety aspect, I suppose, and a nice way to introduce students to the world of agriculture.
The animals are vice-free as far as they can. Of course, they're still 600 kilos and there's still lots of bars to jam your hands in, but that's actually the purpose that we have them for. The animals are extremely quiet, allowing the students to learn. If the animals are Angus steers, there would be too much noise, it would be frantic, and nobody would be comfortable, nobody would be able to learn. There's one steer in here, and we actually introduced steers because we realised the students just never got to touch a steer. It was all just dairy cows. I do like to have a mix. So I've got some crossbreds, I've got a steer in here. We've got a couple of oddities, a couple of free martins. But generally speaking, it's nice cows that didn't get in calf, and somebody said, would you like this one?
For some of our listeners who might be less familiar, what is a free martin? Can you just explain that and why a dairy farmer wouldn't want one?
Well, a free martin is a female cow who is reproductive organs haven't developed fully, and it's never going to get in calf. It's often a consequence of being a twin. We'll happily take them, not too many because they're not typical, and that's the risk if you have too many oddities. The students don't learn what's typical.
It's a veritable menagerie at the university's learning farm, which celebrates 30 years of running. Professor John Huxley, the head of veterinary science, sees it as an important part of teaching at the country's only veterinary school.
Kia ora, my name's John Huxley. I'm Professor of Dairy Cow Health and Head of the School of Te Tawhara, or the School of Veterinary Science at Massey University. I'm a North Walian farm boy by upbringing, went to veterinary school in London, moved to New Zealand in 2018 where I took up my current role. We're actually at a really exciting time in our development as a school, and I tend to frame it as new curriculum, new buildings and new class size. We're really in a process of changing absolutely everything about the school for the first time since we were founded in the 1960s. So the university is currently undertaking a $160 million complete rebuild of school facilities, and we're rolling out a brand new competency-based curriculum which really focuses on delivering day one ready graduates ready for working in industry and in the profession. And finally, we've increased the class size up to a maximum of 175 students per year in order to meet the growing demand of the nation's veterinary requirements.
So how many total students would you have at the moment?
600 and 650 would be about our total student cohort at the moment. We're currently rolling out the increase in class size. That big class size is currently in third year, so the bigger class size will be graduating in 2 years' time.
What's driving the increases, do you think?
Veterinary science has always been a really attractive subject area for school leavers, and our growth in class size is simply down to the demand of our nation and the requirement we have for vets to deliver the nation's veterinary services. Absolutely acknowledge that over the last 15 to 20 years, the majority of that growth has been in the companion animal sector. Demand for veterinary surgeons in companion animal sector tends to be driven by two factors: population and affluence. So as you get a growing middle class, people are prepared to spend more money on their pets, and therefore the demand grows. Absolutely, there are some challenges within the profession in terms of sustainability and mental health. Have to say that relative to some of the other countries around the world, and I'm not in any way belittling the challenges we have in New Zealand, the evidence suggests that we're not in as bad a place as perhaps some other places around the world, and it remains a really attractive career option for many graduates.
And what's the split between students focusing on, say, small animal health versus the students who are focusing on large animal health, like where we are today?
Yeah, great question. And that really comes down to the importance of ruminant agriculture for New Zealand PLC. We remain one of the most species diverse veterinary schools, actually, of anywhere in the world that I'm familiar with. So we probably now would get students, about 50% of our students would be basically small animal only, and the remaining 50% would still be very much a mixed role, rural jobs out in New Zealand. I think the different career paths within veterinary science have their own challenges. When you're in those large animal rural jobs, you are effectively there 24/7, 365 day a year. But at the same time, you also have that closeness to community and the fabulous bonds that our graduates can get in the communities they work with that can actually help to counter that and give them the support and the network they need to survive and thrive as a vet in rural communities.
For 30 years, Latu has served as an equaliser for these students, offering hands-on learning opportunities for those from non-rural backgrounds, as Professor Huxley explains.
On a global scale, it is relatively unique. We're hugely privileged to have such a fabulous facility and access to such a large range of the common domestic species that we can use in a tightly contained, for want of a better word, safe learning environment. You know, historically, like many other veterinary agricultural schools around the world, it was a sort of piecemeal approach to the access to animals based on our wide range of farms that Massey is privileged to have. But then this was put in as a specialist teaching unit 30 years ago and has really delivered a sea change in what we can achieve in the teaching environment in those early years of both the veterinary and the animal and agricultural programs.
That's not to say the university's not moving with the times, with new technologies increasingly part of the learning.
You'll appreciate one of our roles as universities is to be constantly future focused, but at the same time recognising that what we don't want to do is move too quickly and end up down a rabbit hole that leads nowhere. And so absolutely we're looking extremely carefully about how we integrate AI and actually all of the developing technologies into our programmes. Latu really is a fantastic facility, and it's an absolute privilege to have such a great resource that we can share between the two schools. And I think it's one of the reasons that we are genuinely world famous for the practical, world-ready nature of our graduates. In all of the international surveys, our graduates come out within the top 5, the top 10 most employable graduates in the world in terms of practical skills in veterinary science. And it's facilities like this that really make that possible.
That was Professor John Huxley I was speaking with at Massey University just outside Palmertston North. I also spoke with farm manager Mike Reilly, and this week the university unveiled its new $70 million veterinary research facility, Nahuia.